As society, we're going more and more towards the audiovisual content. We've seen it with the success of such platforms as TikTok, that nowadays probably is like much more powerful than any other advertising platform.
Hello and welcome to the Multilingual Content Podcast, where experts discuss international content management, translation, and global communication. I'm Katerina from Undertow. Today we are excited to have Alexander Ekhilevskiy join us for a chat with our founder Nicola Calabrese. We are shifting our focus to the fascinating world of the audiovisual localization and the challenges it brings. With Sasha's extensive experience in multimedia translation, we will explore valuable insights into this expanding field, highlighting how it can fuel business growth. Let's dive straight into the conversation.
Hello, hi, Sasha. Nice to have you back on our podcast.
Hello, Nicola. Thanks for having me again.
Today, we're going to talk of a different topic. Last time, we spoke about automation and integrations and workflows. This time is a different topic. It will be about translating videos, specifically audiovisual localization. So translating and adapting videos into different languages and for different markets. So this is a topic that is actually kind of close to my heart because you might not know, but I started in the localization industry working in dubbing. So I used to work for a dubbing school and translating scripts for television in Italy. It was a while ago, but so it's still like always like a little bit of video. One of the reasons why I wanted to speak with you about this topic is I know you have a lot of experience in this area as well. So if you can introduce a little bit yourself and specifically talk about like your experience of visual localization.
Sure. My name is Alexander Ekhilevskiy. I go by Sasha, and I'm currently a senior localization program manager at Vista, formerly known as Vistaprint. But I have over 15 years of localization experience. I've been working previously in one of the major language service providers. Actually, there for about 7 years, I've been leading the multimedia localization team. That's why I have the experience to talk about the topic we have today.
Yeah, that's great. And then as well, and maybe we can start like just setting the grounds for the discussion. So like specifically, if you can explain a little bit more in detail, what is audiovisual localization? How does it differ from traditional translation? What are the unique challenges that it entails?
So it's actually a whole different world. And I'm, as you, Nicole, I'm very passionate about it. I think it's like when I discovered it, it became one of my favorite branches, let's say, of localization. And I must correct you because you mentioned that it's like video localization. It's not necessarily only video localization, it can be also audio localization. So there are these two parts, right? And then, so we can be recording audio, localized audio, and that would be applying to, for instance, I don't know, well, podcasts normally are not localized, yeah, right? But you have e-learning courses for which you need to record the new audio. You can localize some other audio elements, like, for example, radio spots. So you have like radio advertising. And then for the video, so this would be for the audio, and you have kind of two parts to it, right? You have the localization of the script itself, which obviously has its own requirements because it has to fit certain time restrictions. We know that all the languages expand compared to English, and like by default, we will assume that most of the materials are produced in English. All of other languages are much longer, which can be an issue. For instance, if you have a radio spot and the radio spot is 15 seconds or 30 seconds, and you need to convey a lot of information within these 30 seconds, you cannot really go over because it's now, German, and it will last for 45 seconds instead of 30. So we have this part of the translation itself, and then we have the part of the recording, which kind of, it's not 100% localization, but it's also like it goes all together, right? And for that part, if we're talking only about the translation part for the scripts, it's also very important that the linguists working on it know that it's actually going to be an audio product, because we don't write the same way we speak, right? I have given always this example that in speech, for example, like in writing, we can have bullet points or we can have brackets. So you can have a very long sentence with brackets in between. And when we're reading it, we know that the information contained within the brackets is a separate thing. And then we continue the phrase. That's something that is not possible in audio because, like you have a very long sentence and you have a brackets. By the time that the brackets are finished, like obviously you can frame it with the intonation when you're reading it. But by the time the brackets are finished, people already forgot what was told before that. Especially it's valid nowadays when the attention span of people with all the, like TikTok videos, Instagram reels and so on, the attention span is very, very short. So like you really have to know that you're producing content for an audio and the content that will be heard and not read. It's a different language. Also, like probably the wording that you're going to be using is going to be different. And that's for the audio part. For the video part, again, we have kind of 2, even 3 parts to it. So first of all, we again have the dubbing and the audio recording. So we are localizing the audio part of it, and there might be different options depending on what's on screen and or what type of video we are doing. Secondly, you can have subtitles, which is probably the most common thing, and our audience will be the most familiar. You go to the cinema or you watch movies in Netflix or any other streaming platform, you can choose the option of subtitles. It's a very common thing. And finally, you have graphic replacement, which a lot of people forget about, but within the videos, there are a lot of like textual information, and it can be, if it's a video like when we're talking about advertising or a corporate video, normally it will be probably like job titles of people or some other information about the company, some additional support information. But also within the entertainment production, you can have some, I don't know, street names or some other information. For instance, when Disney produces their movies, cartoons, they already take the localization into account. So they actually send to different markets videos without this text information. So each market can put and localize this text information on screen. So this would be the 3 elements of the localization for the videos.
And when you send, you're right, like you correct me with there's a difference. There's audio level, the video level. That's true. And when you say like it's common, the subtitle is the most common. I think it depends as well on, especially with cinemas, it's depend on the country. Like in Italy, it's very uncommon to go to the cinema to see subtitles always, and the same I think it's in Germany, France and Spain as well. But yeah, it's very common nowadays with Netflix.
For example, Portugal is the other case, right? They subtitle everything, even on TV, they don't dub anything. Same goes for Nordics. Normally there's it's not really dubbed. It's indeed very culturally dependent. But nowadays, with the streaming platforms, I think it became more and more common to have subtitles.
Yeah, it's quite common. And sometimes I go back to a specific scene and see like with different subtitles and dubbing to see how they did it. Like, because it's really true. Sometimes like I'm listening maybe to in English and say, how did they localize it in different?
Translated.
And
absolutely.
So when we look specifically at the voiceover, because in there you have some specific constraints, as you mentioned, like there might be what appears on screen, in the sense also like a lip syncing and making sure that everything fits when they move the mouth and everything. What are like the best practice or some advice they will give to somebody who actually has to decide to go to voiceover, or maybe some consideration why you should or shouldn't consider voiceover, because that might be interesting as well.
So yeah, indeed, it's very specific. And first thing to know is that if you, for example, you choose the lip syncing that you mentioned, meaning that you will be completely removing the original audio track, putting the new audio track, and this audio track will be the translation, and the audio track itself will be done in a way that it would seem as if this person were speaking in the target language. That would mean that you will sacrifice a lot of content, right? Unfortunately, it's pretty much impossible to make the lip sync localization for the video without sacrificing content, because obviously like all languages expand, as we mentioned, and they work differently. The sounds are very different. So you will be pretty much kind of the translators for this type of text will have pretty much carte blanche for making any changes and adjusting the content. So that part would suit for the entertainment, probably, where you have much more flexibility with what is being said. compared to, if you have an info video about your product and you're giving the product description or product characteristics, you obviously don't want to scrap half of the list of your amazing product characteristics for the sake of lip syncing. So the first thing to think about is that if you want to completely remove the soundtrack, the original soundtrack, probably you don't, and you're creating a video, probably you don't want to have people talking on screen, because this will force you to sacrifice content for audio quality. And if you don't have people on screen, you can do what is called off-camera narration, which basically allows you to be closer to the original content and edit while still having time restrictions. You will be much more flexible in localizing the content of this audio script. Another option that is possible for the corporate videos, for example, and especially it's used for the interviews or like the typical CEO message for congratulating employees for great results, is called voiceover or UN style, where the track is put on top of the original track. For many countries, it's actually going to sound very awkward because you're listening to two audio tracks in two different languages at the same time. In some other countries, it's very common. Actually, like in Poland, for example, they do use it even for the movies. And it's called lecturing, where just one actor is reading the script on top of the original voices. And actually, once you get used to it, your brain separates, like you're listening for the intonation of the original audio, but at the same time, the information you perceive is from the localized audio, which is a weird thing. But yeah, just to know that you have these options. In any case, like if you prioritize the factual component of the video over the aesthetic component, let's say, I would definitely recommend not to use people talking on screen, like especially with the close-ups. Second thing is about the graphics. If you have a lot of graphics in the video, you definitely have to think about the localization. And again, expansion is always a thing. And overloading videos with graphics is never a good choice. Like there is sometimes people who are creating videos, they tend to put like all the information that is being said in the audio on screen. It's not a great practice because basically you end up with a screen full of text. It's like basically the information is duplicated. Also, during the localization process, it's very easy that, in the audio during the recording, they would adjust something in the studio to make it fit, but then on screen it will be still translated in the original way, so it will be a mismatch and it looks just awful. So I would say when you're creating the text on screen for the videos, always have in mind the expansion. Ideally, like leave room for a lot of expansion, up to, like, I would say everything has to be at least like 200% expansion is a great practice, because again, there are very long languages, and just like fitting in, squeezing in the content doesn't look great in the video. So like if you start reducing the font and all that, it will not look great. And I understand that towards the original creator of the video, it's not nice because they're creating the video with the look that it has in the source language, and then they say, oh, but this looks amazing and we don't want to leave more space because the space will look awful. But then, if you localize it, it's going to be the other way around. And then finally, if you are thinking about subtitles, a good practice generally is to leave the lower third of the video kind of free from texts and graphics, so to make sure that the subtitles don't overlap with the video. Also, that you don't have the need of making the subtitles jump from top to the bottom all the time, which is very annoying for the viewer or reader. So I would say these are the main requirements. Also, if going back to the speed, let's say if it's not an entertainment video, where obviously you will not slow it down. And for the information component, I would say, like, if it's an informational video, makes sense that the pace is not too fast for the same thing, because the languages will expand, and that you will have either subtitles or audio where with this expansion, the reading speed or the audio speed will not be matching the original. So like it's better to stick to like a middle average speed rather than going fast, because then in the localized video, it's going to be like too fast.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, my experience, it all sometimes happens as well, especially with the informational videos for companies. They might speak very quickly, not leaving any pause between sentences, and using a lot of acronyms, which in localization you might have to, let's say, expand or do some kind of different treatment to make them clearer. No puns, please. Especially in corporate videos, please don't do puns, because that's just too complicated to localize for that kind of videos. When you think specifically about the when a company is global market expansion, like what role in your experience videos can play with that? How does it help? When it might make sense to consider it, given the fact that, as you said, there's a lot of unique challenges entailed with audiovisual localization.
As society, we're going more and more towards the audiovisual content. And we've seen it with the success of such platforms as TikTok, that nowadays probably is like much more powerful than any other advertising platform, right? So like, because we know that a video that goes viral in TikTok will probably have millions of views, while you put an advertisement on TV and probably people will have like a bathroom break while you put it. So the outreach is really like, it's also much more difficult to measure. So definitely we are going towards this like consumption of the short videos, and like not only TikTok, like also YouTube as a platform, and people tend to read less and less. I mean, I will not get into the discussion of books and so on. I mean, read as an information, right? They don't want to go to read a very long list of product features on an article on how this product is working or how to set it up. You actually can see it that most products nowadays, like if you have to like build it or set up, they will have like a long description with the text, but then they will have a video, how like fast setup, whatever, because you can put a video, you can even speed it up. And that's something a lot of people using, me included. Like I normally, like
I do as well. Yeah.
Is slow, like you put it to 1.5 speed, because you say, yeah, it's 5 minutes, I will listen to it in 3. So in that sense, definitely we are going toward more and more towards the video and audio content. The acceptance is much higher, the adherence of the audience. Also, we are seeing it with all the training courses, right? It's now a corporate standard to have e-learning course or a video training, especially with the remote jobs, because people are not, again, like there's fewer and fewer in-person trainings, and people don't want to read a manual of 20 pages for anything. They prefer to watch a video or like an interactive course. So that definitely helps. And in terms of the outreach of the companies, yeah, it's an absolutely way to go, because I do believe that any text advertising or providing information is getting less and less popular.
Yeah, I actually agree, because especially when I'm thinking about like software, I really appreciate when companies have like even a lot of them have on the landing page a brief video that rather than just being, sometimes rather than be super like an ad, it's more like actually showing how the software works, what it does, real quick, like an overview. So in a couple of minutes, you get a general idea what the software does, why it might be useful, and seeing somebody do that, and you see also like how easy it is to do that kind of thing. That's really helpful. What do you think about, like you said, training, like also like when you go to support health center of companies is so very useful. Again, I'm thinking again of software, when you see like literally where they're clicking, where it is, because sometimes you see click on this and you're looking at the screen, there's so much stuff on the user interface and you don't know where to look for that specific button they're mentioning. It's so much more immediate.
Much more intuitive as well.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think, like sometimes when companies are like localizing video, again, focusing on video, but if you have anything on audio as well, it's obviously really appreciated. Any kind of mistakes or pitfalls that sometimes companies do, that it might, like the top that comes to your mind, like try and avoid this. It's better if you do it this way.
As mentioned, yeah, like overpopulating videos with text is one of the most common ones. The pace as well, and then not accounting for different types of languages, right? Because we have for example, Asian languages that require their own, and normally Chinese and Japanese, for example, and Korean give fewer problems. But for instance, if we talk about Indian languages, normally they give a lot of problems with fonts. So we need to be very careful with the fonts we're choosing to make sure that they actually support, especially if you have, like corporate identity and corporate image, and you want to use specific type of fonts, you may need to make sure that they actually support all types of languages, all types of characters. And then the typical thing of right to left languages, because for the video, like, it's already a challenge for any type of localization, right? Because you have to invert everything. But for the video, you actually have to flip the full video.
Just a note here that we're talking languages like Arabic, Farsi, Hebrew that are written from right to left.
Correct.
Just clarifying for our audience, just in case. Yeah, you flip the video. You say, yeah, the image.
Yeah, you basically have to flip the video, and especially for the cases that you mentioned, for instance, if it's an explanatory video. So here, go and click on left button, top left button, whatever. You have to localize everything. And that's something that we've seen quite a lot, that the video is created in a way that it's actually very difficult to flip it around. And for instance, I've been working on localizations of some camera videos, like the actual DSLR cameras, product videos. And I remember like the challenge was that they had like these screens that were opening, and then like they were opening in the way, and then like there was text above it. So like when you would flip it, like obviously you cannot flip it because like the camera opens in a certain way independently on the market, but then like the text would go in the wrong side. So it was pretty much a nightmare. So I would say that that's one of the biggest pitfalls, probably, to think that this video will not stay in English, and you have to really like account for all the possible options.
So that's, I think, connects back to the like planning from the very beginning when you create the content, especially if you're already in some markets. There might be other, even if you're not now in a market where the language is spoken from right to left, written from right to left. Maybe in the future you might be. So it's always good practice. You have to keep that in. And I'm curious, how did you sort out the issue with the camera video?
Yeah, well, in the end, like we basically had to make the camera a bit smaller so it fits like even with the opening to the wrong side. But it was a lot of work for the video engineer. And basically that's also like, well, we need to think about the costs, right, associated with localization. And in the end, you spend a lot of hours on that to adjust it. And these are the hours that are not accounted for, because basically like you're accounting only for replacing the text. By the way, another tip basically especially for the companies who ask to external agencies to create the videos is to always request the source files for these videos, because they are actually like they are part of your package. As the content owner, you have the right to have the source files, and they will make your localization process so much easier, because any localization agency that you will ask to localize your videos the first thing they will ask is are the source files. And localizing videos with the source files, when everything is then when all the text layers are editable, and actually like the video engineer can go and replace these text layers and export the new videos, is so much smoother and easier than having like the export, then you have to like put masks on the layers to cover the text, then to create new text effects to make it look as if it were created on that language. It is possible. In most cases it's doable, but it's much more time consuming, and obviously it's much more expensive.
Yeah, makes sense. So also you mean like also when you receive the produced video, right? You produce the produced original video. Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. And the other thing that I want to ask you, we haven't touched it yet, but I mean, I know you probably read a lot about the AI, the impact that is probably going to have on the audiovisual field, the synthetic voices. I don't know where you want to start, but like, what do you think are the most interesting trends coming out now?
Well, I mean, obviously, as the multimedia content is very prone to adopt all these new trends. And we've seen like a few months ago, there was an app that became very popular that was dubbing automatically videos, and people went crazy creating a lot of like memes, basically doing funny dubbings. Indeed, it's one of the like biggest developments probably, and they are getting better and better in the sense that back, 10 years ago, probably, you would use the text to speech tool, and it would sound really robotic, and you would really know that it's a robot. Now they're much better. They are still not like 100% human, let's say. Obviously, we're also getting used to it. So it's kind of, I don't know whether they got so much better or we got used to more robotic sounding voices, because indeed a lot of companies are already using it, and we are also used to the robotic voices when we are calling to the phone companies, and we have the automatic replies, and so on and so forth.
Although I wouldn't use that as always a positive example, I would say.
No, it's not a positive example. It's like what it can be used for,
no,
right?
but yeah, that's true. You're getting used.
The thing is, right now they are already on a decent level, and obviously it's a much cheaper choice because the voice talents, and they are awesome professionals, but their time is quite expensive. The studio time is quite expensive. The audio engineer time is quite expensive. So the production of the audio content is expensive. Now, we need to discuss the quality that we want to get out of it, right? So I would say right now, like it's also the quality and how it matches the desired outcome. So for instance, if you have like an entertainment product, say a series or some like movie, right now definitely you cannot use any AI voices for that, because they will be lacking the intonation. You still need this actor playing and human touch for the dubbing part. It's absolutely not replaceable. If it's a purely informational video, especially like for training purposes, and you kind of don't really care how boring it will sound, they are on a very decent level. You still need to run the QA because there will be some pronunciation issues for sure. And actually, sometimes you have to misspell the words in order to make sure that the automated voice pronounced them correctly. It's a funny thing.
Yeah, especially names, like names and surnames. They get
you
it
have to
really
kind of
confused,
transcribe, but also common words. Sometimes they, I don't know, for some reason they will swallow one letter. So instead of one E, you have to write double E, and then it pronounces it correctly. Or even sometimes it helps putting a space in between, like in the middle of the word, you put a space, and then again, suddenly it pronounces it correctly. That's for the audiovisual translation. For the subtitles, for example, and for subtitles production, AI is used very heavily, both for time coding, and there are amazing tools out there that make time coding very precisely, actually much more precise than human subtitlers, because basically it goes with the audio wave, so it really knows like exactly the millisecond where
I don't mind if you mention names. I mean, if they're good tools, why not? I mean,
one that comes to mind, this ThinkWords. It's an online tool, and their results in time coding are really amazing. And then, so that part I would say can be pretty much fully relied already on the AI, the time coding. There's like, and also it's kind of a mechanical and repetitive tasks. So it doesn't make much sense for a person to do Q in, Q out, Q in, Q out, like it used to be.
but you recommend the human QA, right? Afterwards.
Always, just because like the cues will be perfect, but sometimes you say, oh, actually, like this phrase is better if I split it in two because of logical points. Obviously, the machine still doesn't get the logic of the sentence to say, actually, here is better to split it in two, or these two parts is better to keep them together. It goes basically, you put in parameters, and like the settings are very flexible. You put in the characters that you want, the reading speed that you want, and so on. And it goes and splits stuff, but obviously doesn't understand the meaning of the words. At least it's not what it's meant for. And then the translation part, obviously machine translation has been applied to subtitles also for quite some time. It's been more challenging than with the regular texts because the subtitles are obviously split in very like tiny bits. And also the subtitling, due to the reading speed limitation, needs a lot of condensing of the meaning, right? You cannot really just translate and put all the words out there because, again, English is very compact and short, but then you will translate it to in German, and then it will become very long, and it will like the subtitles will occupy your whole screen, meaning that this condensing is much more difficult to get from the machine translation. Like now with the generative AI, probably like there will be some experimenting, like to sum it up. But also it's been used, and actually like we've all seen the results of it because in like any platform that we are watching, we see the results of the AI generated subtitles. Unfortunately, sometimes they are not really great. And especially once you start to dedicate to this word and then you see like these disasters of subtitles, you kind of overreact to that. At least I'm struggling every time I watch a movie with bad subtitles. And we are seeing like the subtitles with mistakes, with wrong line splits, with like 3 lines and so on and so forth. Because, and like, yes, I understand they are generated probably by the AI, but there's obviously also lack of QA because of the amount of the multimedia material we are producing. It's obvious that right now we as like humanity, we're producing much more multimedia content than ever before. So like previously you could have like the movies that the Hollywood would release, like, I don't know, X amount of movies, and then the Bollywood would release some movies, and each country would release it, and that was it. Now with all the platforms and series and TV channels, the plus like all the online platforms that also like and people creating their own content, the amount of content is really outrageous, meaning that there's no human possibility to actually, like, if you need to localize it all, there's no human possibility to localize this amount of text. So this amount of content. So inevitably there will be more and more use of the AI for that. The question of the QA, yeah, it's curious because also for me, especially like if you know how it goes, for me seeing a wrong subtitle, for instance, completely takes me out of the movie and like saying, oh, like this is wrong, and then like for the next, I miss the next subtitle because of that, because I'm actually thinking of how wrong was the previous one. I understand not all of people probably are so obsessed with that, but it is an issue also because, as I said before, with the audio production, with subtitles, well, at home you can rewind and watch it again, but you are not probably will not do it like for every subtitle which was wrong, and you will say like, oh, what did I read now? But even like if it's somewhere which is not your home and TV, you don't have the possibility to rewind. Then you like if something is wrong, you basically miss the whole point of the phrase because you already like the beginning of the phrase is already long gone. The middle probably is mistranslated or like wrongly split or wrongly punctuated or whatever, and then but you arrive to the end and you think, oh, what was it actually? So you miss the point, and you don't have this possibility as with a book, like where you can, oh, I missed this phrase, I will reread it to understand it better.
But on this point, I actually have a question. I would like your opinion because, on one hand, something similar to what we discussed before, like, for example, with the automatically generated subtitles on YouTube, people are getting used to like not having top quality every single time. Obviously, depends on the kind of media. And this plus, on the other hand, I'm thinking about the Squid Game case, where basically there was a big fuss around subtitles, but still that didn't prevent the show from becoming like one of the top viewed. So just wondering, how much do you think that affected the, let's say, more than sensibility, what the level of acceptance of like mistakes and bad quality really affect? Because obviously we work with this, so we pay more attention, I think, the general public. So that's like the understanding or the perception. How much do you think that affect, or if there are other factors to keep into account?
Well, the level of acceptance will be higher and higher because indeed people get used to it more and more. And also, you're right, people who are not familiar with the production of the multimedia, they will not be aware of some of the mistakes. In terms of how it affects the series or I don't think it can heavily affect the series because, if you have 10 episodes and each episode has one mistake in subtitles, well, eventually you still watch it and you understand it, and that's it. You miss some puns, you miss some bit of information, but it normally will not prevent you from understanding the whole thing. Probably you will enjoy it a tiny bit less than people who understood it all. I think it needs to be like a major disaster in translation or localization and of creating the subtitles in order to indeed ruin the show completely. I think it's more viable to ruin the show with the dubbing than with subtitles, because there, first of all, like you remove the original track, you are replacing also the voices and the intonation of the original actors, and you also you're preventing people from hearing the original at all. And so like if there's something wrong with the translation there, you're completely ruined. Indeed, with Squid Game is kind of an interesting point because Korean is not so widespread as a language as English. So obviously, most of people who watched it, even like with subtitles and the original audio track, were not aware of the actual what was actually being said. While with English, and depends on your level, but normally, like if you watch a series in English, even if you're not fluent in English and you put subtitles in your native language, you will still capturing some stuff. So you kind of can counter check a bit whether it's correct or not. So yeah, I don't think it can completely ruin the experience. It can make it more poor, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, no, it makes sense. Because I was thinking, like, if in entertainment, maybe just reduces, let's say, the enjoyment of the multimedia content, but maybe like in cases when it's, for example, instructional videos, there like mistakes are actually worse, because if you don't get the proper instruction, you might do the wrong thing. Let's say it's a safety tutorial on how to behave in a warehouse. If you don't understand some of the stuff, yeah, you it's going to be
For
dangerous.
that, I even have a better example than a warehouse. We've been doing a lot of medical videos. So, for instance, it was an instructional video for diabetes patients on how to, like, there were new forms of administration of insulin, and the instructional videos on how to administrate insulin. So, if you make mistake there, it's actually like, well, I don't want to be too dramatic, but it may cost a life to the person because you translated something wrongly in that video. So I think the whole debate of the quality has to actually match the content, right? So each content will require its quality. So if it's an instructional video, definitely you want to be very precise with the details, and you don't want to just leave it to the machine translation without QA to say, oh yeah, let's just put it, people will understand somehow. You need to make sure that people understand every single word precisely. And with entertainment, yeah, well, kind of, it's more challenging in terms of like localization creativity, obviously. But at the same time, if you miss something out, the price as a value of it, not the actual cost, is much lower than with medical video.
Yeah, true. And do you think there's any other like trend or something else that we didn't discuss regarding audiovisual translation that it will be worth mentioning?
I don't think there's like a separate trend. What I think is gonna happen very soon is that also everything will get more and more connected, in the sense that there will be speech to text connected to machine translation, connected to text to speech, all in one go. And especially it will probably satisfy the people who are anxious to get the episode of their series immediately dubbed 5 minutes after it has been premiered in the United States. I think there's going to be definitely a thing, because I remember like when the Game of Thrones was coming out, there were like people who were actually like watching the episode at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning European time, already like putting the subtitles, like fans of the series, putting the subtitles, releasing them on some whatever pirate website. I think this part will be like very much automated, and probably the companies will just say, you want your series immediately, yeah, it's just you will push the button, you have it immediately, with the caveats for the quality that it might imply. But right now it is impossible to get the subtitles for any series episode pretty much like in 1 minute, because if you connect all these three technologies, you're done basically.
Yeah, it will be similar to what you get with YouTube. Sometimes you can auto-generate the
Correct.
subtitles. But you get the disclaimer. That's a warning. This is just automatically generated. So, and I know they've been working a lot like to try and cut out like mistakes with swear words and things they shouldn't say by mistake. I think it's not in the video because there were like some mistakes in automatic translation that they get like very wrong. Well, thank you again, Sasha. It was a really interesting conversation. I don't know if you have anything else you would like to add. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
Not really. I think we've discussed pretty much everything and a lot of topics. Yeah.
It was super interesting. Thank you so much again for joining us on the Multilingual Content Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. The Multilingual Content Podcast is powered by Undertow. We help companies translate their content into results. Get in touch if you want to know more. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episode. See you next time.